Hello, my name is Summer, and today I'm going to be talking about child abuse and neglect in the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia defines child abuse as abuse or neglected children younger than the age of 18, whom the following apply to: whose parents or other person responsible for his or her care neglects or refuses to provide care necessary for his or her health, who is without parental care or guardianship because of unreasonable absence or the mental or physical incapacity of the child's parent, guardian, legal custodian, or other person standing in, whose parents or other person responsible for his or her care creates a substantial risk of physical or mental injury by knowingly leaving the child alone in the same dwelling, including an apartment, with a person to whom the child is not related by blood or marriage and who the parent or other person responsible for his or her care knows has been convicted of an offense against a minor for which registration is required as a violent sexual offender. For signs of child abuse and neglect, there are quite a lot, and they also have it broken down into different categories. Signs of physical abuse include questionable bruises and welts, burns, fractures, cuts, scrapes, scratches, lacerations, or abrasions. Child behavioral indicators include uncomfortable with physical contact, wary of adult contacts, apprehensive when other children cry, exhibits behavioral extremes, aggressiveness or withdrawal, frightened of parents, afraid to go home, reports being injured by parents or other caretaker, complains of soreness or moves uncomfortably, wears clothing inappropriate for the weather to cover injuries, reluctant to change clothes in an attempt to hide injuries, bruises, etc., or may be a chronic runaway. Signs of neglect include being consistently dirty and having severe body odor, lacking clothing that is adequate for the weather, has unattended health or medical needs such as dental problems, hearing problems, or vision problems, may live in an unsafe or extremely dirty home, a consistent lack of supervision, especially when involved in dangerous activities or for long periods of time, has been abandoned by parent or guardian. And other indicators would include if they beg for or steal food or money, extended stays at school, demonstrating constant fatigue, listlessness, or falling asleep in class, stating there is no one at home to provide care, abuses alcohol or drugs, or frequently absent from school. There are also a lot of signs here for emotional abuse. Some of those would include having age-inappropriate behaviors such as thumb sucking, biting, head banging, or rocking, neurotic traits such as sleep disorders, inhibition of play, extreme behaviors such as overcompliance, passivity, aggression, withdrawal, or inappropriate affect for the situation. There's many, many more. There's also several under sexual abuse. Signs to look for is having difficulty walking or sitting, having torn, stained, or bloody underclothing, has pain and the itching in genital area, having bruising or bleeding in external genitalia, vaginal or anal areas, having a sexually transmitted disease, especially in preteens, becoming pregnant at a young age. There are a lot of professions here that are listed that are required to report as mandatory reporters. They include persons listed to practice medicine or any of the healing arts, hospital residents or interns and nurses, social workers, family services specialists or probation officers, teachers or other employees at public or private schools, persons providing full-time or part-time childcare for pay on a regular basis, mental health professionals, law enforcement officers, professional staff employed by private or state-operated hospitals, persons age 18 or older associated with or employed by any public or private organization responsible for the care, custody, or control of children, court-appointed special advocates, persons age 18 or older who have received training approved by the Department of Social Services for the purposes of recognizing and reporting child abuse and neglect, persons employed by a local department who determine eligibility for public assistance, emergency medical services providers, persons employed by public or private institutions of higher education, athletic coaches and directors, administrators of employees age 18 or older of public or private day camps, youth centers, and youth recreation programs, ministers, priests, rabbis, imams, or duly accredited practitioners of any religious organization or denomination, such as a church. And for the time frame that needs to be reported, there is it kind of depends on the severity of the situation, and I have more information about that actually down in the consequences, because there's different levels of consequences depending on the time frame that it needed to be reported in. So I will get to that one in a minute. But for what is the procedure for reporting child abuse and neglect, it says a mandated reporter who has reason to suspect that a child is in an abused or neglected or is neglected shall report the matter immediately to the local department of the city or to the county or city where the child resides or wherein the abuse or neglect is believed to have occurred, or to the toll-free child abuse and neglect hotline of the Department of Social Services. A mandated reporter shall disclose all information that is the basis for his or her suspicion of abuse or neglect of the child, and, upon request, shall make available to the Child Protective Services coordinator in the local department that is the agency of jurisdiction any information, records, or reports that document the basis for the report. The initial report can be oral, but such report shall be reduced to writing by the child abuse coordinator of the local department on a form prescribed by the State Board of Social Services. And then for what is the penalty for not reporting child abuse and neglect, it says any person required to file a report pursuant to this section who fails to do so as soon as possible, but no longer than 24 hours after having reason to suspect a reportable offense of child abuse or neglect, shall be fined no more than $500 for the first failure, and for any subsequent failures no less than $1,000. In cases evidencing acts of rape, sodomy, or object sexual penetration, a person who knowingly and intentionally fails to make the report required pursuant to this section shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. No person shall be required to make a report pursuant to this section if the person has actual knowledge that the same matter has already been reported to the local department or the toll-free child abuse and neglect hotline of the Department of Social Services. So it sounds like it's saying that you cannot wait any longer than 24 hours after having reason to suspect a reportable offense. And if you've waited past that period of time, then that's when you kind of run into the issue of, that you can be fined. So that was all the information that I had found for the state of Virginia. A lot of really good information there, and I hope everyone has a really good night and finishes out the class strong. So, bye.